All right, welcome to episode 11 of Nittany Sports Now's Victory Again podcast. Joe Smeltzer, as always, joined by Brandon Walker. And Brandon, Penn State, it feels like we say it every week, but Penn State did what it needed to do this past Saturday against Rutgers, just like it dominated Indiana, dominated Maryland, and dominated Rutgers as well, beating the Scarlet Knights 55-10 in Piscataway. Bit of a rough first quarter. Penn State fell behind 3-0 and then again 10-7. But Penn State scored the next 48 points to get a convincing win. And Brandon, you were at the game, first game you've covered in person for Nittany Sports Now. How was your experience in New Jersey?
It was an experience. I'm grateful to be a part, to be a part of the beat. Now I joined the beat, so I'm officially a part of the Penn State beat instead of covering remotely. So I'm appreciative of that.
Yeah, what were some of the things you liked slash disliked about Rutgers?
I was outside initially, then a person nice enough for Rutgers let me inside the press box and got me a seat in there. The game was what I thought it would be. No, I actually didn't think Penn State was going to be 55-10. Thought it was good. Thought it would be a comfortable spread. But once Rutgers missed that field goal, Penn State turned it off, and they turned it on, and they didn't turn it off.
Absolutely. So, how loud is that cannon they have there? I never heard it live,
The
but
cannon, well, they only put. It's pretty loud. It's definitely pretty loud. But they only had it about what ran in about 3-4 times. So it wasn't that effective. But
yeah,
when I was going out on the field at the end of the game, that's when it popped. I was like, what the hell are you doing popping this thing? You just lost 55-10. And you're just putting the cannons. I guess that's the end of the day game
yeah.
tradition for them.
It was probably pretty obnoxious in Ray Rice there when they actually scored a lot of points.
Yeah, but they didn't. Sure.
Yeah,
I,
but
I, why are they in the big? I guess it's the New York market. That's the only reason why I could see them being in the Big Ten. Because this because
yeah,
this does
that's pretty
not
much
make any.
why. The one that confuses me more is Maryland because Maryland was an ACC staple and now they're just not in the ACC. It's pretty unfortunate, I think, in basketball more so because you used to watch Maryland play Duke, Wake Forest, UNC. Maryland was like right part of that ACC tradition, and now they're out of it. But I don't know. So before we move on to Michigan State, you had probably the prediction of the year in your and when we did our staff predictions and you wrote your prediction. You picked Penn State to score two defensive touchdowns, which they hadn't done since 2005 against Illinois, and it happened. You're fortunate that Keziah Izzard took an unnecessary block in the back penalty on what would have been Johnny Dixon's touchdown, which would have given Penn State free. But what made you feel that Penn State was going to score twice defensively?
Number one, the way the Penn State's defense has been playing the last couple of weeks, and two, I sized up where I did. I mean, knowing I was going to go to the game, and I took a little bit more time than I usually would. But let's face it, I wouldn't have done as much research if I wasn't going to be at the game.
Right.
Sized up their offense, and I was like, oh no. I was like, no, this is going to be a mismatch, and it sure was.
Yep. All right. Well, we might have another mismatch this week. Michigan State isn't quite as bad as Rutgers, but they aren't good. We thought Michigan State would be pretty good coming into the season. Going back to before week 3, Michigan State was number 11 in the country, ranked well ahead of Penn State. But week 3 happens. They lose a non-conference game at Washington, go back into the Big Ten, still ranked, lose 34-7 to Minnesota in East Lansing. Then the next week, they lose at Maryland. Next week, get blown out by Ohio State at home 49-20. And since then, they've gotten blown out by Michigan in Ann Arbor and most recently lost at home to a bad Indiana team, which Penn State throttled in Bloomington. Michigan State lost to that Indiana team in double overtime on senior day. And what this Michigan State season is going to be remembered most for, unfortunately, is how the team acted in the tunnel at Michigan, basically jumping two Michigan players in that tunnel. That was just very shameful on something that's hurt the roster too. They've had to hand out several suspensions because of that. But yeah, a lot of people were talking about Michigan State, talking about Mel Tucker. Mel Tucker's making a lot of money. Him and James Franklin both got extended around the same time last year, but Penn State's done pretty well in the first year of Franklin's 10-year extension, and Michigan State just hasn't done well under Mel Tucker at all this year.
Yeah, you are definitely right. Like I always say, Michigan State's kind of like Auburn. One year they're up, one year they're down, one year
Yeah,
they're left, one year they're right. It's like you never know what you're going to get from Michigan State in a particular year. So I'm not surprised. I thought they would be bowl eligible by now, but I didn't think they was going to be. They were at 5-6, right?
yep.
Yeah. So right now they're not where they need to be. Obviously, I guess they did lose Kenneth Walker. They lost a few other pieces along on the key pieces on the team, but sizing them up, yeah, this should be another decisive victory for Penn State, I would
Yeah,
say, and then we'll see where they go to in the bowl game.
yeah, it's pretty interesting because Michigan State does have a decent quarterback in Peyton Thorne, and looking at Peyton Thorne's numbers, they're pretty similar to Sean Clifford. Thorne has a 62 completion percentage. Clifford's at 62.4. Both have 18 touchdown passes, and Thorne has thrown three more interceptions than Clifford, 10-7. But yeah, I mean, you look at those two, and they're pretty much the same guy, both experience as well. Clifford, obviously, a 24-year-old, 6-year senior. Peyton Thorne's a little younger, but still, he's a junior. He's a multi-year starter. He's 21. But Peyton Thorne's a decent quarterback. If someone even wanted to argue that Michigan State has a slight edge in the quarterback department, I'd understand it. The running game for Michigan State too it's been okay. Jalen Berger and Elijah Collins each have 6 touchdowns. Jarek Broussard averages 4.8 yards a carry. Actually, all three of those guys I mentioned are averaging around 4.8. Berger, Broussard, and Collins are 4.8 on the dot, and Berger's right behind at 4.7. But yeah, Michigan State, the team that you just watched, Penn State beat 55-10. Michigan State beat by 6 at home. The team that Penn State beat 45-14 not too long ago, Michigan State lost to at home on its senior day. And I'm supposed to believe, I know it's a rivalry game, crazy things happen, but Michigan State couldn't get a win at home on its senior day, and it's supposed to somehow spoil Penn State senior day on the road.
Yeah.
No, no,
What is it? What is it? 18? What's the point spread? 18?
I think it's 18, yeah.
Yeah. Rutgers was 19. So it's pretty much, yeah, this might be another nice little blowout.
Yeah, and
So
I'm really looking to see a lot from Sean Clifford this game, because this might be Sean Clifford's most meaningful game of football ever. I mean, I'm sorry, that's not what that's not what
I
I
mean,
meant.
for the rest of
Yeah,
his
it might be
last,
his. I meant to say it might be his last meaningful game of football ever. In fact, it probably will be, because you got the bowl game. Bowl games aren't what they used to be. We all know that. This is his last game in Beaver Stadium. It's his last rivalry game, last Big Ten game.
right.
And when they asked James Franklin, we're recording this Tuesday night. Franklin had his weekly presser, as always, early Tuesday afternoon. They asked Franklin if Sean Clifford could be on the coaching staff, and Franklin didn't say anything about Clifford playing in the NFL. He said that Sean Clifford's going to go and would be likely to go into the business world.
So
So
yeah, hold on, man. You say you don't think he has any NFL future?
I could see him getting a shot with a team, and I see him being a guy that would go to camp, see what it's like, and then probably not be good enough and move on.
Yeah,
Sean Clifford, I don't think
I'm
he's a guy that's desperate for an NFL career. I mean, I'm
right,
sure he'd like to have one, but there's a lot of athletes, without sports, like who are they? Well, without sports, Sean Clifford is still a very bright,
right.
very intelligent person who has experience in the business world. Obviously, we both know with limitless NIL. So he's going to be just fine doing what he has to do. And I he's going to have a brief career, if any career at all. And I think Clifford will be just fine
Right.
regardless of what happens. So, but going back to how that ties into Saturday's game, it's going to be Clifford's last time, I think, playing a meaningful, definitely, I think, playing a meaningful college football game and probably playing a meaningful game at any level of football. And I think that could motivate him because, Michigan State's defense isn't very good. So that could motivate Sean Clifford to have a big day. And obviously, Parker Washington's out for the season, which Franklin announced, and that's a big blow. But you still have Mitchell Tinsley, still have Keontre Lambert Smith, have Harrison Wallace, who's had some big catches this year, now getting more playing time as a starting receiver. Uh, but yeah, Clifford, he's also a guy that rises to the occasion when a lot of people are watching. Minnesota Whiteout was one of his best games ever. And I think he's kind of due to have a big game here. And I think he picks apart Michigan State. I really do.
I think he does too. But I do want to go. I don't want to just go back. But this has something to do with this. Clifford was a four-star recruit when he came out, right?
Yes.
Okay, four-star recruits. Why didn't I just want to know what happened with Sean Clifford. How come he hasn't gotten? If you're, I'm saying for your four, I know we're not talking about NFL, but how come he hasn't got? If he's, how come he had to be there for 6 years, and even then he might get a try, he'll get a tryout, might make a practice squad if he's lucky. What happens to that? What was his stunted growth at Penn State? That's what I wanted to know. Wanted to
Yeah,
ask you. Who
and
do you
I
think it
don't
was?
know if there's an easy answer to that. Well, first off, the program in general got worse after Sean Clifford's first year as starter. And Sean Clifford, you could argue he got worse, but the numbers aren't too different. But Sean Clifford also didn't take a big leap forward, which a lot of people do, and a lot of people have criticized him for that. So I think you could chalk it up to a few things. For one, going back to star ratings, people are off on those all the time. Like there's been two 3-star recruits, quarterbacks that have had better college careers than Sean Clifford, and there's been 5-star quarterbacks that have had worse careers than Sean Clifford. It's just
Right.
those things aren't an exact science, but there's a few things out of Sean Clifford's control, I think, that have played into it. Obviously, he had to play quarterback during the pandemic season, which isn't ideal
Right.
for anybody. Not only that, under a first year offensive coordinator, too. And then the next season, he had to play again under another first year offensive coordinator.
Okay.
Uh, and we could talk a lot about how Sean Clifford should be remembered on the field, but I think the biggest criticism for Sean Clifford is that the Sean Clifford in 2022 isn't drastically better than the Sean Clifford in 2019. I think the criticism for that is warranted, and I'm not quite sure why exactly that has been that he hasn't taken that leap forward. So
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, all right, because that's when I, made one of them. Like it was in one of my columns earlier in this year. I was like, he's pretty much stayed the same quarterback. I was like, I don't know, but going to this. So, how do you feel about having Penn State, about the bowl situation? What do you think? That's gonna pan out?
well, the bowl situation took a big hit tonight, hours before we recorded this. Penn State beat a team 55-10 and somehow did not move up in the college football playoff rankings. It was 11 last week, stayed at 11 this week. Tennessee lost to South Carolina 63-28. And Tennessee still ranked ahead of Penn State despite both teams having 2 losses. I think it's kind of ridiculous. You asked about the bowls. Penn State's going to have a hard time making a New Year's Six bowl now. Obviously, to have any chance at the Rose Bowl, both Michigan and Ohio State still get into the playoff. I'm not sure how realistic that is because any conference that's not the SEC is going to have a hard time getting 2 teams in the college football playoff.
Right.
That's just the way it goes. To make the Orange Bowl is going to be hard too. Penn State, I think, has to root for LSU to get blown out by Georgia in the SEC championship, which could happen. But it's looking more and more likely like the Citrus Bowl January 2nd is going to be the way to go, which is, yeah.
And guess who they're going to probably play too?
Who do you think?
Hold on. Probably Alabama.
Yep.
Because they play SEC team, right?
Yeah.
Well, it could be Ole Miss, but
I think Ole Miss or Alabama.
Oh yeah, because if they play Alabama and they go in this bowl game, and it's similar to a Michigan situation, we're gonna be talking about everything like this all over again, all off season, and I don't want that.
Yeah.
For Penn State.
Yeah, this is the first, and we've talked about this pretty much every week, it feels like, but it's still relevant. This is the first season, and I've been watching Penn State football. I'm 24 years old, been watching them as long as I can remember. I cannot remember one season where Penn State won every single game it was supposed to win and lost every single game it was supposed to lose. It just doesn't happen. There's at least one game in there that is surprising result-wise. But this year, Penn State, it did have an easy schedule. We know that. But it beat every team it was supposed to beat. And the 2 heavyweights it faced, Michigan and Ohio State, it came up short against. So 10-2 is exactly right. And this is assuming they beat Michigan State Saturday. But it's just weird because that never happens.
Yeah,
I mean,
it doesn't. Like, it's usually an upset. I was like, where's the up? Because I was thinking Maryland. That could have been it. But it didn't happen. So you say you've been watching Penn State basically all your life.
Yeah.
So you are, I wouldn't say a fit. Would you call yourself a fan of Penn State?
Before I went on the beat, I was.
I mean, before we
Yeah, well, it's a big family tie-in. You know, my dad's a graduate. I have uncles, aunts, cousins. So I was kind of bored into it.
I got an aunt there that went there too. 2 aunts or a cousin went there, but I was actually covering Pitt before I came to Nittany Sports now. But I think I just followed it up. I always kept an eye on Penn State. Yeah, this was the first time that I was thinking that there was no upset, there was no either way. So I'm excited for the bowl game. Let's see what that happens. But I want to just talk about we got a nice little special visitor coming through this weekend that caught the attention of certain radio hosts. Rodney Gallagher.
Yep.
Committed to W. We're not speculating anybody on anything.
No,
we are not doing that.
Facts. Rodney Gallagher is coming to Penn State Saturday. He's still committed to West Virginia, but commitments always could change. So there you go.
How do you think that's going to pan out?
It depends on what happens with Neil Brown. Obviously, Neil Brown has been much scrutinized, and rightly so. The team hasn't won with Neil Brown, but I don't know what they're going to do with Neil Brown. I don't know what Gallagher's case is, but anytime a coach gets fired, one of the side effects is that commits could go somewhere else. Right. And that's going to be the case with Neil Brown. If Neil Brown gets canned and Rodney Gallagher doesn't leave, other people will. I mean, that's just and I haven't talked to any West Virginia recruits, but that's just common sense, right?
Right,
When
of
Bill
course.
O'Brien left for the NFL, guys committed to Bill O'Brien left. James Franklin took Trace McSorley with him when he went to Penn State. Trace McSorley had been committed to play for Franklin at Vanderbilt, and then Franklin gets a Penn State job, and Penn State gets one of the best QBs in school history as a result.
Right.
So that's just how it goes. And
Yeah.
I think the fact that Gallagher's visiting Penn State on a weekend where a lot of people are speculating if this is going to be Neil Brown's I think they play Oklahoma State. This will be Neil Brown's last game at West Virginia. That's very interesting, and it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Gallagher was in Penn State, or Penn State was in Gallagher's top 4 before he chose West Virginia, along with Notre Dame and Pitt. So and Penn State also just lost the wide receiver commit in
Johnny Shakir.
Johnny Shaker. So and they're definitely putting the press on with Gallagher after that. Kind of Penn State had good luck with a QB situation when Marcus Stokes, who was also
Yeah.
in the news this week, he had been committed to Penn State, flipped to Florida, and Penn State ends up getting Jackson Smollett to flip from Tulane.
They made out better.
I
They
think they
made,
did
I
good.
can tell you that right now. He made us better because I saw his stats. I'm talking about Stokes.
Yeah.
His team went 2-8, and they had, I think his touchdown to interception ratio was, I would say it's about even. I don't think I think he threw one more interception or one less interception than touchdowns. So there you go, right there. I think Penn State dodged the bullet.
Yeah. And Stokes has since lost his scholarship to Florida too.
Right.
But yeah, you're talking about Jackson Smollett. What a kid. I never talked to Marcus Stokes. I can't speak for his character, but talking to Jackson Smollett and people who know him, I talked to both his parents and 2 of his coaches. What a well-rounded person, very insightful, an expert on music, among other things. Just I think he's a person that Penn State fans are going to get to know him a little bit come signing day, and they'll get to know him over the next few years. But what a personality to add to the quarterback room. Obviously, Penn State's not going to be a fun place to be a backup quarterback for the next few years. But I think Penn State made out better too, to be short. So I agree. But yeah, this is Nittany Sports Now's Victory Again podcast, episode 11. We both expect Penn State to win this game. Everybody expects Penn State to get a big win. Do you have any score predictions, Brandon?
Okay. Let's see. Penn State's gonna kick their butt. I'm saying 38-21. It ain't gonna be like I don't think it's gonna be like the last 3 weeks. I think Michigan State will put up some sort more of a fight than everybody else this past month, but I think it's gonna be like a 38-21 backdoor cover type score or something like that.
I think it's going to be bad. I think it's going to be 59-14.
You could be
Um,
right. You could
they're
be right. I'm just saying that right now because I haven't even had a chance. It's Tuesday. I usually don't get to size up these opponents till like Wednesday or Thursday, like
yeah,
Wednesday.
and
So
I just think the team is playing with such confidence right now. I don't know if you wrote an article. You had the transcript for Franklin's press conference. But his press conference, I haven't been on the beat long. I've only been on the beat for a little more than a year, but I have never seen James Franklin in a better mood than I saw him in his Tuesday press conference ever. Just and not that James is typically in a bad mood, but he was asking every reporter that asked him a question. He was thinking of random Thanksgiving dishes, pitting them against each other, and asking the reporter what they thought about it. Like I have never seen that. He was just Absolutely stoked to talk to some of the players. Jair Brown in a great mood. Sean Clifford, great mood. Jonathan Sutherland, like just everybody's happy. The team is playing with such confidence, and I don't think it's overconfidence. Because if Penn State was an overconfident team, it wouldn't. I don't think it would have beat Rutgers 55-10. I don't think it would have beat Indiana 45-14. This team has experienced playing bad football teams and being expected to win. Um, and it knows it can't overlook anybody. So I think if Penn State was going to overlook someone, it would have done it by now. Maybe it
Yeah.
got that out of the way against Northwestern. Maybe it got out of the way Central Michigan. But I think any possibility of Penn State overlooking a football team, there's just no evidence that they're going to do that. And I think Penn State and Sean Clifford are going to come out firing. And I'm saying 59-14. And do you have any bold predictions? Because obviously, I don't know if you're going to be able to top your prediction from last week. That was just a once in a blue moon situation. But any bold predictions this week, like kind of a prop bet type of deal?
Ugh. God, since I got something to do this weekend, I'll follow it like during the I'll do whatever I can to follow it like on my phone and stuff. Ugh. Let's see what I could do. Let's see what I can find. Allauer throws for two touch. No, I think let's put it this way. All three quarterbacks. If you think it's gonna be a blowout like this, Penn State's gonna show up and not let off the gas. I don't know what the weather's supposed to be like for Saturday, but if it's a good position game day, how about all three quarterbacks throw a touchdown pass?
Yeah, why not?
That's my ball. I guess I'll go with that.
And
But
I think they got to get Vayu in there because I think this is going to be Vayu's last game in Beaver Stadium too, for different reasons than Sean Clifford. But um, I don't see any way Christian Vayu's on this team next year. Because he's gonna transfer, and that happens.
I think he would be a good like not to disrespect him, but like a good MAC quarterback, like playing in the MAC or
Well,
like
I think he has a chance to start at a Power Five school.
another Power Five school,
And
but
I'm not
not
I'm
like
not
Penn.
saying I'm not saying he's gonna start at a place like Georgia, but I mean, like just I'm not saying West Virginia exactly, but maybe a West Virginia type school that is Power Five but hasn't had great success. And maybe you look at a guy like Christian Bayu, who was somewhat highly regarded coming out of high school, has a win under his belt, beating Rutgers last year, and maybe he'll get a shot. I don't know, but I think the worst case scenario is he starts in a mid major. Yeah,
Right. Like yeah, like he could be like somewhere like Virginia Tech or something.
yeah, and he also has a connection there with Brent Pry. Yeah,
Right.
Pry's a defensive guy, but he still knows Christian Bayu, obviously. But um, yeah, we'll see what happens there. But until Penn State plays Michigan State Saturday, look up our writing on Nittany Sports Now. Continue to follow our Twitter accounts. Myself, Joe Smeltzer 775, the site's account at Nittany SN, and Brandon, your Twitter account.
B Walker the Dawn, and I wish everybody happy Thanksgiving.
All right. I wish everybody happy Thanksgiving too, and we will see you after Thanksgiving. Episode 11 of the Victory Again podcast has concluded.